Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing Geek Vibes Live review. I'm your host, Tia, and we today are breaking down the third season of American Gods. Now, if you listened before, a few days ago, we released another review with a fellow blogger called Michael Cook from Thoroughly Modern Reviewer. You can check that out on our Spotify, and that was awesome. But I was like, I had a great time as well, but I was like, I want to talk to my fellow GVNers about possibly one of my favorite shows that's going on right now. So yes, we're here. We're talking about American Gods. I'm Tia, but please let me not hesitate in introducing my co-host. That would be Juwaan. How are you?
I'm very good. Tia also failed to mention she has stock in American Gods, so this is par for the course.
Yes, I do. It's one of those things where it's like, so I don't know if you've been seeing, well, first of all, before I go on that, let me not go on a tangent. I have to also introduce Joelle today. How are you doing, Joelle?
Fine, totally fine. I'm good, and I'm ready to speak some American Gods.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, American Gods hasn't officially been renewed for a fourth season yet, and so it is killing me. I feel like I felt the month after Daredevil season 3 came out, and we were like, didn't know what was going on yet, and you still felt hopeful. You were like, the reviews are super positive, and the showrunner said that he already submitted season 4 ideas, and then a month later they were like, Netflix cancels Daredevil. And so I have that feeling in me. I feel kind of better because of other things. I won't get into it, where I'm like, all right, I think it's going to happen. It probably is going to be the last season, but that's okay. Let's not dwell on that. Let's talk American Gods season 3. I want to start off with just asking what you guys thought about the season as a whole. So, Joelle, I'll go to you first.
Ooh, first.
Yeah. You said you were born ready, so
I was born ready. I think that's my nickname. Like, that's someone else's nickname. I'd probably get sued. I enjoyed it. I think it's probably been one of my favorite seasons of all the three, and that's probably because I understood it easier than the other three. For some reason, the other two, they lost me a couple of times. Right, I was very confused at what was going on, and maybe I needed a show to help me guide me through it. But this third season was much easier to follow, and I don't know why that was the case. Maybe the writers or whatever, but it didn't seem as in depth,
all over the place.
Maybe a little higher. I don't know. They were just speaking above where my head was, but this definitely didn't feel that way. It was definitely easier to follow, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. Like all the characters, the acting's always good on the show. That's never really been a problem for me. So the acting continues to be good. And then the only problem is you missing some older characters, like oh my god, what's his name?
Matt Sweeney.
Matt Sweeney is one of them. The other one, though,
Mr. Nancy.
Mr. Nancy, I miss him so much.
I do
too. But yeah, Matt Sweeney, of course, was always a very fun character. And then, of course, Mr. Nancy. I love that character. So it's really sad to see them not coming back for this one. But we had some interesting new characters. Like they introduced Tyr, I think, right? Was that's the first time I remember seeing him, right?
This is his first introduction.
And I like the actor who played Tyr, so that was really interesting. And we actually get to see a fight between Odin and Tyr. That was cool. I guess there's this new girl who was kind of like took Shadow's place as Odin's driver, as Mr. Wednesday's driver. That was new, right? I believe. Who else? Was the new Leprechaun, whatever his name, or whatever it is.
Liam, yeah. I liked him.
What are they? Are they like? Because that's what he was. I thought like Matt Sweeney was a giant leprechaun or whatever the fuck. So Liam looks definitely more size, easier to figure. But I'm still confused at what the fuck they are.
I believe they're leprechauns. If I like, I'm not like an expert on mythology or anything like that, but I could have sworn that I read at some point that leprechauns, real leprechauns, they're not real, but in the context, right. I guess, of like mythology, were actually like giants, but then people started calling them short as almost like an insult to them. So then it just came to be that throughout the years they were depicted as very tiny people, but in fact that they were quite tall.
Really? Okay, well that's news to me. That's awesome. Makes way more
About
sense
myself.
now. But Liam is great. Like the actor, just like I love him from almost everything except for maybe Inhumans, but we try not to talk about that. Not his fault. Not his fault.
Not as well.
But I loved him in this season too. We got to see what's the Arab guy's name? I forget his name.
Oh, Salim.
Salim. That guy always makes me sad for some reason, but yeah, he was great again. You were gonna say something?
No. I was agreeing with you saying like yes, Salim is just his story does make me sad.
Yeah, and they get really. He gets all the crazy sex scenes too, so it's like every season I'm like, oh
Every
my
season.
god, Jesus Christ, he goes in. Anyway, it was a good season overall. Without you guys get a chance to speak about your favorite parts, but I think I enjoyed this one just a little bit more than the others.
Yeah, I will say that and I feel as if you know how in some things you watch it and you're like, that's my favorite because it's so new. But I
Mm-hmm.
do, in my mind, really enjoy American Gods as it goes on, where every season I like more than the previous. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I liked season one, but even as because American Gods was based on a book by Neil
Yeah.
Gaiman, and
Right.
even Neil Gaiman said like the first season felt very episodic, and it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then season two, yes, was a little all over the place, but I still liked the decisions that they were making there. And then
Mm-hmm.
season three just really felt like it was on track. It really felt
Yes.
as if it had a mission, it had a story it wanted to tell, and it wanted an end goal that it needed to get to. So even if, say, there were some moments along the lines that maybe didn't always live up, I still felt as a whole that season three was the most concise season that we've had. So I definitely agree with you, Joelle. I really enjoyed it this season. I loved getting the extra 2 episodes that we got because the previous 2 seasons have only had 8 episodes. So, but yeah, I'll let Juwaan now talk and let me know what you thought about season three.
Well, the biggest thing that frustrated me was you've given me 3 seasons now, and I have not seen the old gods fight the new gods. And it's becoming this thing to where it's just like, we'll get there. Like I'm not comparing it, but it's starting to feel very Lords of the Rings-ish. To where
Well,
go ahead.
if I can say really quick, and it's like I'm never the type of person to be like in the book because I'm just like, to say that I'm not a book reader sounds like I'm illiterate or something, but I'm not like a Harry Potter fan or anything. So it's like I've never had a moment where it's like I've been a lover of a book and have waited to see it adapted. So this is like the only time that it's like I know what happens in the book, and it's like this is very part of the course. Because in a way the story isn't even really about the war, but we'll get into that later. But anyway, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Well, I mean that then probably will frustrate me even more. That to me, that was part of the selling point of me enjoying this show. Is like they're gonna get to it, and it's just like, I guess they'll get to it. Well, I mean, again, to compare it to Lord of the Rings, when they finally got to their destination, it was well worth it. But it did sure take forever to get there. But I wasn't really a huge fan of how the season started. I'm very much so. I look at seasons like I do movies. Your first movie is you setting the table. The second is you going all crazy, and then the third is kind of ending it. So to me, I was kind of just like, this is like a lot of story still. And it wasn't until around like that halfway mark of I was just like, okay, it's picking up. And then like I messaged you. I'm not gonna get into it because I'm sure it's part of the topics, but the ending was just like, yeah, this is really, really, really good. I just kind of wish it was just more action because that's what I thought the whole premise was. Like we were getting to a point to where it was all out war. So as long as they don't like, if they get renewed for let's say 4 more seasons, don't have 3 more of you stringing me to get to the war. Let me get to the war pretty soon. Like I've been waiting long enough. But overall, I really did enjoy it. Shadow should probably find a way to go bald again. I don't know why.
I heard a lot of people, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt. I heard a lot of people dislike his hair. And from my standpoint, and I'm just coming from my standpoint, I didn't see what was wrong with it, but that's just me. But I was like, all right, apparently it's bad. That's fine.
I just compare it to the equivalent of like if you were born in like the mid to late 90s and you've only known Bruce Willis to be bald. To see him with hair is just like, what is this? Like, why do you have hair? So it was just more so that for me. Like, I've only known Shadow to ultimately be bald. So not necessarily. All right, let me say this: not him having hair. I think the style of hair he had is what freaked me out, because it wasn't just like going from no hair to like, all right, like, you know, like a short buzz. Like that was just like the weirdest way for someone who's bald to have grown hair back. But like I said, overall, really did enjoy the season. I enjoyed the new characters. I did kind of feel like I knew that old lady was something.
Oh yeah.
Like she just seemed like, you know, let me tell you why I knew that old lady was up to something. And American God should definitely sue Marvel. The whole nosy neighbor thing was Agatha. So then you watch this and you're like, yeah, she kind of does feel like Agatha. Like she kind of does feel like the nosy neighbor that's maybe hiding something or knows more than she's letting on. And I really did like how that all kind of like played out to where now the cop is just like, what the hell was that? Like, did we just kill this old lady? Like, so, but no, I'm really excited for what they did this season. Like Joelle said, Salim, he does have this feeling about him to where it's just like, hey, are you having a really good day? It's like, yeah, I actually am. Well, so I'm gonna bring Salim in today, who's gonna ruin all that for you. And it's like, oh, don't do that. Like, don't do that. But yeah, he I really do hope that something good comes for him. Like maybe he finds the guy that he's been looking for and they can get some kind of closure. Because to me, I feel like he thinks he has closure, but everyone has that like X to where it's like, I'm over him or I'm over her, and then they show up and then it's just like, oh fuck, like I'm feeling it again. Like, so I'm really curious because I assume if they get renewed, part of Salim's journey will be he has to come face to face with him again. So I'm really curious on that. But yeah, I did enjoy this season.
Just to, again, like I'm just giving, say, like slight background. The reason why sometimes like the tonal there's like a tonal shift is because each season has had a different showrunner. So it's like season 1 had Michael Green and Brian Fuller. Season 2 briefly had Alexander Jesse, I forget his name actually, honestly. And then season 3 had Chick. So it's like each season has had a different showrunner. I know that was a concern of Neil Gaiman's, that if they do get renewed for a season 4, which honestly, if they're going with the book, there is only 1 season left of story to tell. So I know that Neil Gaiman is hoping that if they get renewed for a 4th season, that they can keep Chick on, so at least you have someone who has set things up and he doesn't have to go through it all over again. But whatchamacallit, yeah, the Hinzelman reveal was great. I felt bad for Chad because he just seemed like such a small town like cop that literally is just used to like not any crime at all, and it's like, we just killed someone and burned her house down and now you're leaving and I don't know what's going on.
You know what it reminded me of? If you remember, that's the same feel Stranger Things gave you. Like, remember, what is his name, Hopper, in the show?
Yeah, Hopper.
It's a very small town. Like, nothing happens there. People don't go missing. Murders don't happen. And then, like, the very next day, an alien shows up, and then a whole bunch of aliens show up. And now it's nonstop murder in the town. So it was kind of just like, God damn it, like I can't. How do I tell people like they'll be safe? And I didn't know what the hell's going on.
I said that to Brittany during a top 10. I mentioned Stranger Things, where I was like, to me, it's such a small town. If you remember in, I think like season 2, someone was complaining that their pumpkins were destroyed. And I'm like, yeah, that's a small town thing.
Yeah.
In New York, you would never go to your like fellow cop and be like, hey, some of my pumpkins were destroyed. They'd be like, and
Yeah, that
so
cop would be like, yeah, we have a lot worse that happens in this city.
So you saw that in Lakeside where it was like everything is just so nice, but it's like not really nice. It has this very dark sort of truth behind it. So I wanted to go to like the new characters that were introduced, Hinselman being one of them. Fun fact for you guys, Hinselman in the book is a guy, and they gender swapped the character for the show, which I thought actually worked. Having the old lady that's all sweet and everything is a much better turn, I feel like, than the old man, in my personal opinion. You had Chad, Liam, Cordelia, Tyr. I want to say out of all of the new characters that they did, my favorite was I have to say Liam because I like the actor, like what Joelle was saying. I really like the actor and I loved him being, bless you, I love him being this like new leprechaun on the scene, but he's so different than Sweeney. But I liked how his story, because when they were like introducing him in the trailers, they said, he's the new leprechaun on the scene, da da da. And I was like, how does he connect to Laura? And him saying that he was originally meant to kill Laura was a very interesting thing. But Juwaan, I'll go to you. First question is, what did you think about finding out that Liam was originally meant to kill Laura, but ultimately turned it down? And who would you say is your favorite new character?
I thought that was interesting. I mean, it just goes to show you that Mr. Wednesday was just very thorough about making sure that she died somehow. Like, I'll find some leprechaun to do it. But
And that's another thing. Is it only leprechauns? Like, why is it?
Apparently, those are his only hitmen. He's just like, these leprechauns are really pretty good at killing. That's the only guys I can count on. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And as far as who kind of stood out to me, it'd probably be Mr. Wednesday's driver.
Cordelia, yeah.
Yeah, I loved her. I really, really, really did. And I kind of like at the end to where she's kind of just telling Shadow, like, let's just go away. Like, don't worry about this. Let's just leave. We could do more cons, have a fun life. You know, live life ocean style. And Shadow's kind of just like, nah, I kind of want to have thunder for for powers. Like,
Nah, I kind of want to just be like stripped down naked and like hanging from this tree for 9 days. That sounds super cool.
Yeah, he's like, at the slight chance I could throw thunder out of my fingertips, I'm gonna go try that. But I do love her character because it was someone that was kind of just like, I just drive this old guy, and you were kind of just like, is this romantic? Is this father? Like, what is this supposed to be? And then she's kind of just telling Shadow, like, no, just kind of, he pays well. Like ultimately, like, I just really like the money. And I like that. You know, it's not more than what it needs to be. It's not something completely ridiculous or weird or twisted. It's just, she needed money, he needed a driver. So I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed, he wasn't hitting on her. Like, it wasn't those weird situations that shows and movies love to put you into where you're just like, why does
Because they could have went in that direction.
For sure. And I like that they didn't, because it doesn't always have to be that. There are men out there that are just like, hey, I just need a driver. Like that's it. But yeah, I really did enjoy her character. I enjoyed her arc because you kind of saw her grow in a sense in this season. Excuse me. And I'm really interested to see after the events of Shadow's audition, I call it, where does it leave her? Because if Mr. Wednesday's back, does he feel all powerful to where he doesn't need a driver? Like, where does she fall in this very small world for her, or a very large world for her? I'm sorry, but her being so small in the bigger picture of things. So I am curious to see where she goes from here.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to like Cordelia because when they were doing the, the promotion for American Gods season 3, a lot of the new characters felt like replacements of old characters. You have Liam, who was another leprechaun. You have Cordelia, who's another driver. You had the different variations of World come in. And it's like, okay, are these just supposed to be replacements? But I found myself really liking Cordelia for all the reasons that you said. I loved her wanting to do heists with Shadow. My favorite line of Cordelia's is the last episode where they're standing over Wednesday's body and she says something along the lines of that puto with a spear in regards to Laura. I was like, yeah, she's pretty great.
I do
and
have
I
to
love
say, I always thought it was weird how television shows, like when they have Hispanic characters, when they decide to have them speak Spanish, and it's always in like the weirdest moments like that. Like it was just like, really? There?
Yeah, she hasn't said one. That is true. It's like she didn't say one Spanish word the entire show, and it's like, no.
So she called her a bitch.
Right. For me, it's always one of those things where it's like, you get a Hispanic actor or actress, and you're like, because they're Hispanic, doesn't mean you have to force them to find ways to speak Spanish. It should be something more fluid. And that just didn't seem fluid. It just felt like, oh yeah, we should probably have her speak Spanish. And it was just like, why? Like, why did you do it there? So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it was just kind of like, huh?
It was a little like, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Remember, this actress is Hispanic.
Right. It was just like, I don't think anyone forgot that. We remember. We knew. It's okay.
Yeah, the actress's name is Ashley Reyes, who I spoke to as well. So you could check that interview out on YouTube. Joelle, I know you were talking briefly about the characters that you enjoyed, but first, what were your thoughts of Cordelia, and who would you say was your favorite of the new characters introduced this season?
Good question. I would say I like Cordelia. She was good. And again, I enjoyed a lot of the lower characters. Who's my favorite is very, like I said, I think that's hard. I wanted to say Liam, but I also really enjoyed at least the small bits we got of Tyr. And I like that. I like the story they used there too. But I guess I'll stick to Liam because I just thought, again, I love the actor, and he's actually in a I don't know if you ever seen it. He has a show like probably one of his first shows. So good. If I could just remember the name of the damn thing. When I do, I will tell you. But and you just definitely
is it something like Misfits or something like that?
Something like that. It's I can't remember. God damn it!
You told me where they all had powers.
Yes, it's fucking awesome, that show. The CGI is terrible, but it's a great show. It's old. It's an older show, but it's good. It's really good. And he's in one of the main characters. So yes, if you guys haven't checked that out, please check that out. Once I get the name, I will definitely let you know. But that's why I like seeing him, and I loved him in Game of Thrones, even though he was I love to hate him in Game of Thrones. Is really what I want to say.
Well, he was the best villain in Game of Thrones, and after watching Inhumans, the dumpster fire that was Inhumans, I can definitively say he was the only kind of good thing about that show.
Yeah, they wasted him on that show. It was really sad.
Such a waste.
I don't blame the actors because some of the actors are pretty good, but like that show's shit. Let's put it that way.
You're acting like it's legit called Misfits.
It is called Misfits.
It's called Misfits. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I have to check that out because anytime I look on Tumblr under his tag, lots of gifts show up, but I didn't realize it was like a superpower thing.
Well, also, your favorite character, I think he's your favorite character from the Umbrella Academy is
the guy who plays Klaus.
Yes, that's why I heard that.
Actually, Tia, Joel actually did tell me this before. If you have Hulu, it's on Hulu.
Yeah, it is on Hulu.
Oh, I do have Hulu, so there you go.
It's like 5 or something like that. It's I loved it. I really did.
Yeah, I thought it's funny because I was hoping that Liam would have been in the season longer than he actually was, because he was
Mhm.
only in 2 episodes. But I thought that he brought this really great, like, just character to him. I loved his interactions with Laura. I love that they ended up not sleeping together, because I thought that that's what they were going in the direction of. And then
Mhm.
for to have like that great character development with Laura, where it was like, no, let's not do this. And he doesn't take it like personally. He's kind of like, all right, well, let's just go bowling tomorrow or something. Like, such a great character. I would love to see him back. I don't know what his role would be really, but I would love to see it. But Joelle, you mentioned Tyr and his storyline, and I had a question for you guys. It's not on my list of, but I just thought of it now because I still don't know the answer. Do you guys think that Wednesday legitimately was there for Demeter because he loved her, or was he there for her money? And Juwaan, I'll go to you first.
Column A, column B. I mean, I'm always of the mindset two things can be true. I think he truly did care for her. Like when she died, I don't think he went, "Oh no, my money." I think he really went, "Oh no, like she would rather die than
Which is very dramatic, but
yeah." Like
understandable.
I think that really hurt him. Like, could you picture that in real life? If like you're like, man, I really love you, but like I could use your help right now, and someone was just like, I would rather not be here than to either love you or help you. And it's just like, well, you could have just said no. Like, why did you do that? But no, I think two things can be true. I think he's very much a manipulative person, but I think he also very much loves her. Same way I think with Shadow. I think he very much is manipulating Shadow. But I think a part of him still loves him for sure.
Okay. Joelle?
Um, I, I probably feel the same. Like I do believe in a little bit of both. Even though I'm not gonna lie, at the end of this season, I lost faith in him completely.
Yeah.
I'm like,
before
what?
that before that finale, I very much thought that it was like, oh, he really cares for her. He loves her. We see how much he's pouring out his heart and soul. And then that finale, you're like, no, he doesn't feel anything.
Yeah, that's what bothers me. Like I like that. I like him so much, and it's probably the reason I was so heartbroken. I was like, oh, he's actually a piece of shit, isn't he? Um, but yeah, it's why it caught me off guard. I didn't expect him to do that because I really thought he loved Shadow, you know. But now you find out he's kind of using him, and like, I don't know how to feel anymore. Like,
I, I
what is-
weirdly I weirdly, Joel, compare it a little bit to remember during Thor's arc, it was very much like, yo, Odin is an asshole. And you find out he's an asshole even more when you see what he did to his daughter. But
Right.
you also see in Thor Ragnarok of how he had a different perspective on life and he understands how wrong he was. And he would have loved nothing more than to go back and fix things and have his kids and do better by his wife. But in the moments when those things were happening, he very much was only thinking about Odin. But you know, as life kind of went on, he was just like, damn, I kind of love my kids. It's like, I mean, why didn't you kind of showcase that? It was just like, I don't really know how to. So I think that's where Odin kind of is. He doesn't know how to show it. He's like, his life has been war since day one. So it's the idea of that's all he knows. He doesn't know how to be a father. He doesn't know how to be a lover or a husband or whatever. So it's just like, you know, at some point he'll gain that perspective to where it's like, God damn, I maybe could have taken Shadow to the park once. Like could have thrown him a baseball or two. So I think it'll be a perspective thing that if we see more seasons, he'll start to gain the same way that Odin did with Thor and Loki.
um I will say, like, as I said, I think that he did genuinely care for Demeter. I think, like, to me, the moments of sincerity are that. Remember in season 2 when Donar was killed, when he killed himself? It's like, I do truly believe that Wednesday was sad over that. But it's like, I don't know if he really cares for Shadow, because if you guys caught, and we'll talk about the ending further later in this, but it's like, he said to Shadow, this has all been in place before you were born. a blood sacrifice by his son. It's like, did he love Shadow, or was Shadow literally just a pawn in
Right.
this? And I don't know if two things can exist at once in that scenario. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that, but we'll talk about the ending in just a second. But speaking of Shadow, we touched upon this briefly. Let's talk about Shadow's journey, because I loved seeing Shadow really just be on his own this season. The previous two seasons, we saw him mostly around Wednesday on this little road trip. We didn't see a whole lot of personality from Shadow. I didn't. I know that in the previous two seasons, Shadow was kind of probably my least favorite character, just for the fact that I didn't feel like he really was exuding anything that said that he was a person. Um, and then this season, I really loved him. I loved him in Lakeside. I loved seeing him befriend Chad. I loved seeing him with Marguerite. As we were saying, his relationship with Cordelia was phenomenal. So I really love seeing Shadow have like an actual personality this season, as well as this really awesome journey that ultimately took quite a turn in the last episode, with him being a little egotistical. So Joelle, do you want to comment on Shadow's journey this season?
Yeah, I mean, Shadow was, like you said, like I liked him in the other season, but like you were saying, it didn't seem like there was much personality. It's more like a grunt. It was most of that
Yeah.
the first two seasons. But I did like his journey here. Like you said, he was alone. He got his own like place at Lakeside and flirting around with that one girl. He was trying to fucking paint walls. You know, it was nice dancing. He grew out of
Yeah, he was having fun.
right. Like it was a very different side of him. So it was nice to see him be more. But still, not be afraid to go back to help out some friends if need be, and it actually showed that he actually cared about Wednesday. And he said he couldn't support her decision of trying to kill him because that's his father. Once he found out his father, he's like, I can't support that. But won't stop you.
Which
But
is
still.
which is ridiculous, considering Wednesday orchestrated Laura's death and he knows that. Like, I feel as if season 2's finale was Matt Sweeney literally saying, like, hey, everything that's happened is because of Wednesday. And
Yeah.
Shadow like heard that, and then in the next season he was just like, no, don't kill Papa. What's wrong with you?
Well, it's hard to get mad at your father for killing your wife when she's standing right in front of you. Right?
Wow.
Well, also remember, the only reason he knows that his wife cheated,
right? It's because of
right. He would have went on with life just like, my wife is the best, and it's like,
yeah, she did him dirty pretty bad.
But then again,
so.
Shadow wouldn't have gone to jail if it weren't for Wednesday.
True.
For sure.
But he's not in jail.
They both were really shitty to Shadow.
Oh yeah.
Or Shadow at the end.
I do have to be honest. Like, if I heard my wife died, I'd be heartbroken. But then if I found out how my wife died, and that's how she died, yeah, I would probably go, okay, I don't really care. I don't really care. That was really dirty. Like, so I'd probably have the same mindset. But yeah, no. He definitely looked at her and was just kind of like Joel said, it's like, man, my dad killed my wife. And it's like, but wait, she's here. Like, why is she here? So it's kind of hard to have those feelings when you're looking at her, and it's just like, he killed her, but
No, I understood that. I was not to like go off of Shadow's journey for a second, but I was happy that Laura became alive again, because that's something that doesn't happen in the book. Like, she remains how she is in the book. In the book, she never even meets Matt Sweeney. They never have an interaction. So that's like completely something that was fabricated for the show, which I enjoyed as a shameless Pablo Schreiber fan. So, that was totally cool for me. But yeah, going back to Shadow's journey, Juwaan, what did you think about it this season?
I liked it for him. I would have, like, from a writer's standpoint, I would have liked it if he had showed some interest to wanting to know if being Wednesday's child, he has abilities. So when he decided to make the sacrifice, it hurt more to find out that it was pretty much null and void.
Yeah.
Because it would have been like, damn, he was like searching for a sense of identity, and he wanted to see if like he was a god. He's been waiting this whole time to see if he was a god, and ultimately it looks like we'll never know. But the fact that he was just kind of like, I want nothing to do with you. Then it's like, hey, your dad died, and it's like, you know what? I would like to see if I have something from my dad. And it's like, what? You didn't wonder that at all when he was alive. So that to me kind of was just like, it seemed very forced in the moment to kind of end the show. I don't know if COVID maybe stopped them from doing maybe elongated version of that maybe. But his specific journey to me kind of felt incomplete because I don't know if he was searching to figure out who he was or if he just wanted to see if he could create a life for himself. It looked to be as if it was a mix of both, but he never really truly achieved it. And I'm also curious if that lady says yes to him. Does he still show up for Wednesday's funeral? Does he still get put on the tree? Or does he kind of just go, you know what? I am happy. He's dead. That means I can remain happy. Fuck it. I want nothing to do with it. I don't care. So I'm very curious if he was able to have that life with her. Would he have still been anxious to see what else was there for him if he had already achieved happiness?
Yeah, I wanted him very much to be with Marguerite. I liked their relationship a lot, so that was unfortunate. I do know due to COVID, they couldn't go back and do some reshoots. Ricky Whittle has said that in several interviews that they couldn't do that. I again like this show has had some bumps in the road. I try not to concentrate on too much because I feel like every project has behind the scenes drama. And for some reason Gods is just highlighted more. But I do know that Neil Gaiman and the showrunner this season were very much wanting the show to get back on track to the book. So I feel as if they were like, we just need to get to this moment, like the ending with Shadow on the tree. They were like, we need to get to this moment so that in the next season we can wrap everything up. So it's like maybe in a way of them just like, let's just get to this. But I do understand what you mean. He doesn't have interaction with Wednesday at all, really, throughout the season, and then suddenly feels compelled. And I'm wondering though if that has anything to do with you know, Wednesday dying, then maybe something within him suddenly is like, wanting to do this, and that's because maybe Wednesday planted as such. Not truly sure if that's the case.
Yeah, I would have liked for that to have been fleshed out just a little bit more. Like I said, all you had to do was sprinkle it in throughout the season a little bit to where it's kind of piquing his curiosity of like, is there more to life? Like, am I like him? I don't need you to dedicate like an episode of him just sitting there like, oh, I wonder if I'm. No, just have him kind of like, yeah, I am his son. Am I a god? Like, am I half god? Like, how does that work? But it kind of like through the first 4 episodes, he's kind of just like, I want nothing to do with you. And then it's like, as it progresses, it's just like, I want nothing. Okay, I'll take some. All right, I do love you. All right, I'll come through for you. And it's just like that, you know what I'm saying? That turnover that quickly is just like, maybe could have fleshed it out a little bit more.
I almost wonder if it was the whole thing with Hinzelman that made him realize like, I'm never going to get away from this shit. Going to Lakeside was my attempt at getting away from all of this, and it's like gods are everywhere and they're all freaking assholes. So it's like I wonder if that almost had something to do with it. But let's move on to the next god or goddess that I wanted to talk about, and that was Bill Quist this season. And again, spoke to the lovely Yetide, and that's on YouTube as well, so you can check that out. But what you gonna call it? Her journey this season's very interesting. It's all made up. Like again, I'm so sorry to keep going to say back to the book. She doesn't have any of this sort of story in the book, so this is all completely made up. And I will tell you that one, I was happy to see her have a spiritual enlightenment, be more than just this very mysterious figure. I will say that I'm still a little confused as to what her story actually is.
Okay.
I was I'm sorry, Joelle.
No, I was gonna say okay because I was a little confused myself. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know what was going on.
I was trying to make sense of it. I didn't know how the Orishas like connected with her because from my understanding, and again, I'm not expert in any of this, but Bilquis is supposed to be the Queen of Sheba. And
Hmm.
if you look at like, and I tried to look up on like Wikipedia and everything, it's like, okay, so the Queen of Sheba in like mythological terms, like in some retrospects is like a Jewish figure and some is like an Egyptian figure. And it like has a few figures, but then I could have sworn I read that the Orishas are supposed to be figures for like African Americans, so I didn't understand how they connected to each other.
Right.
And I still don't know what Bilquis's journey is. So, Joelle, you were saying that you also were confused. So, yes, please talk about it.
Well, yeah, that's why I didn't understand. Aside from her, like I didn't really understand any of it. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
all this, like where it was going. Like I thought she was okay. I didn't realize there was some type of issue. Like she had issues with Tech Boy, uh, and then she got captured. And like you said, what you said, what are they called?
The
The
Orishas?
Orishas, right? I didn't know how they played a factor. I was cool. I enjoyed everything. Watching it was fine. It was just
Yeah, it was
understanding.
fine watching it. I just didn't understand it.
Yeah. No, what was this? Was this her ascending to a new type of god? Like I was, because she's just so I'm so used to her eating people with her, private area that I just wasn't sure where it was going. Like she's trying to go beyond that now. Is that what it was?
Well, my like thought process at some point, even though I still don't really understand it, is if you guys remember Mad Sweeney, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're first introduced to him as a leprechaun. He does say at some point in season one that he was once a king.
Okay.
And there is a story of like what they think Mad Sweeney is supposed to be, and there was a story similar to that. But then in
Mm-hmm.
season two, when they're like, no, not only were you a king, but you were an actual like huge god. Um, and it's like with Matt Sweeney, based over time and how humans' perception of him is basically how he was like morphed. And I felt that maybe that's how they were going in the direction with Bilquis, where it's like, you started as one thing, and based on like humans' perceptive I can't talk. Based on what humans like think of you, that's what you became to this point where you became this very like you start off as like this god of love and harvest and everything, and then now you're like this very sexual god that's almost like fetishized.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I kind of piece that, even though that really was never explained in the show. That's just me theorizing it. But Juwaan, what did you think of Bilquis's journey, and did it make any sense to you?
Yeah, it did. Some of that is loosely African mythology.
Yeah.
So my grandfather would be able to explain that a lot better than I can, but there are elements of that are very, very, very much African mythology. But it seems to me, from what I gained from it, she was finding her true purpose. Like her true purpose is not to devour people, as Joelle said so elegantly, with her private parts.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what she was meant to be. So this was Shadow's journey and her journey, but it was her learning that Shadow is part of her journey. And that's why I think, and I'm sure you'll get to this, but that's why at the end she was glad she found Laura, right? I don't know why
Laura,
you
yeah.
want me to say Laurel. But I think Laura is the key to Shadow. And she knows that, and it's kind of like she needs to make sure she does not die because there's
Right.
still some use from her that unlocks Shadow. So to me, I very much thought the whole point of her story this year was finding her true purpose. And it was, again, having to go back to her roots to remember what her true purpose was. I feel as though at some point she somewhat deviated from that, or she lost her way. And that was her gods kind of letting her know, like, it's more than private parts out here. Like you could mean a little bit more. So that's kind of how I just took it.
Yeah, and I think that you're on like the money, as they say. I guess to me, I was like, Bill Quist is this like really powerful goddess, very old. You know, she says in season 2 that she was old in the desert before they sacrificed the first horse Odin. So it's like, okay, she's very old. I wouldn't have expected her to need to pray to other gods for guidance. But again, I didn't mind it. I just wish that I understood it a little better.
I think I think it was just the idea, not necessarily of needing another god's necessary. I think it was just the idea of she'd become so used to that being her goal. Like that is what my purpose is. And I think it had some double entendres maybe for our Black history, but it goes back to slavery. It was showing you in slavery, like the idea of, and this has been part of Black history for forever. It's what we tell our kids, but it's like we were kings and queens. We know history doesn't showcase that, but we were kings and queens. And it's like, look what society has made you become. And it's this sexual goddess. And to me, I took it as that's not what you were always meant to be. You are a queen, you know, now take on your actual purpose, your actual journey. And I think that was her kind of being enlightened to the idea of how far she's fallen from what she's supposed to be doing. So I kind of took it as like a spiritual guide to where it was kind of like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay. But I mean, I definitely loved the scene she had with Techno Boy, where she literally becomes Techno Boy.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Loved it because it was like how she was speaking was just like, what is this? And how can I get more of this? Like, I need a full episode of this.
I need a whole episode of it. I was not expecting it. When you see, and she has her hair done in the way that Tech Boys was the first episode of the series. I was like, and you could tell she was trying to do her voice similar to the way Technical Boy talks. And I was like, I love this.
No, I loved it. And I kind of believe she said on Twitter, she was thanking him for allowing her to play within the space of being him. And he was just like, I felt like you were taking my job. like you came in and you were killing it. So I love that. I love all the scenes the two of them shared together in this scene. They really play off of each other extremely well.
Yeah, Yetede and Bruce definitely have a great relationship with each other. And their scenes were really interesting this season, considering the only scene that they had with each other was in season 1, where he was trying to collect on on the debt that she owed him, essentially.
Right.
But what was I gonna say? I loved Bill Quist's journey in a sense that I loved her breaking away from what human beings have made her. I mean, at some point, it's like I always love Bill Quist, but in a way, it's like she is killing people. Like that's always my hang up. I was like, yeah, you have worshipers, but they die. Like no one ever sees them ever again.
No.
So that. I love that when Mr. World, by the way, was like confronting her after she like vaginally ate that like CEO of the tech company, and he's like, unless that guy reappears somewhere, we know that's not going to happen. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Which always like made this is so weird, but I was like, can she like be intimate with someone without eating them? Because remember in season 2, they made it seem as if her and Nancy had been romantically involved, and I was like, oh, so he survived clearly.
I kind of compare it a little bit to God, I'm completely blanking. What's the show? Lovecraft Country. Remember, remember her character, her whole purpose was to consume a certain amount of bodies. But when she fell in love with the main character, she to a degree could control it enough to where she stopped it before it literally consumed him. So I think Bilquist to a degree is something like that, to where she's like, no, don't, no.
Not this one.
Don't swallow him. He's a good one. Don't swallow him. So I assume there's mechanics to it. I don't want to make it sound like that, but I think there's a way to control it. I don't know.
Is it weird when I was like talking to her, I wanted to find some way to ask that question, but it's like there was no good way to ask that question. So I was like, I'm not going to ask it.
Like, hey, so your private parts, do they kill everybody? And it's like, wait, what?
Like everyone.
I didn't know how to ask it.
And it's like, yeah, it's like, that's so weird, but it's like, I don't know, it's just something that I thought of. So it's like, now that she has a spiritual awakening, it's like, are we good, Bilquist? No more eating people?
Yeah, hopefully she's tamed that hunger.
What you gonna call it? I will say that it's interesting. Her story is like, okay, she has to find Shadow, but she also has to find Laura, which she did, which I liked because it seems like the actresses have a good relationship, when the cameras aren't rolling. Like I've seen them post things and I was like, oh, cool. I always love when people work with people that they presumably like. But don't I don't get, again, we need a season 4 to explain, but it's like, why are they the two halves of each other? Also, sorry, go ahead. No, you.
What I was just gonna say, do you mean Bilquist and Shadow or Bilquist and Laura?
No, Laura and Shadow.
Oh, okay. Well, I think they're forever bound to each other. But I think the reason why Bilquist, as far as the story goes, I think the reason she was seeking Laura is, if you think about it, Laura doesn't have a story anymore.
No, exactly.
So I think Bilquist seeking out Laura was a way to kind of expand the lore, like the need for Laura to still be in this story.
Which I totally
perspective goes.
I totally get that. My one thing is that, like, I didn't want Shadow and Laura to get back together. Right. I felt as if they were at a point where they realized, like, Laura was never truly authentically who she was with Shadow. They both know way too much of the truth. And again, I was a shameless shipper of Matt Sweeney and Laura. And this season pretty much confirmed that they loved each other. And I was like, okay, well, we got that. I don't want her to go back to Shadow.
I don't think we ever have to. Well, I mean, let me not say that, because to me, I think it's a slice of the same pie, because it's like, yes, they know so much about the truth, but usually that's what brings people closer together. Because there's no more lies. There's no more shroud of secrecy. You just know everything. And I don't think he'll ever be that vulnerable to somebody as he was to her. Likewise, So to me, it's like, I think they're magnets that somehow always find a way to attract to each other. But it is very clear at this very precise moment, neither one of them have the love for each other that they did in season 1. That's long gone, long gone. But to me, I do feel as though they've just shared something that normal people don't share. So they're just always gonna be.
Yeah, and I understand that. Someone was saying, like, well, they could be two halves to each other, but not like in a platonic, not in a romantic way. It could be a platonic way.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping for. Joelle, what do you think about that? Like, when you heard that, essentially these are the two keys that Bilquist needs. What does that mean to you?
I don't know. It was very confusing.
I know.
I didn't know what that meant at all. I literally just sat there for the ride most of the show. But like I said, even though it was much easier than past seasons to understand, doesn't mean everything was understandable.
Yeah.
So this was one of those things where I was like, okay. At one point, I'm like, why are we still following her? I didn't understand. But then it made more sense at the end. They said, like, she's a key, and then, like, but again, they don't really explain why. So, like, I kind of just sat there. I said, okay. I don't know. I have no idea why. But I'm like, okay, sure. She's a key.
Well, as Juwaan was saying, from a writer standpoint, I do truly think that this is the writer's decision to keep Laura in the game. Yeah, because again, like, in the book, she's dead still, and she just kind of like acts as I don't know, a guardian angel to Shadow. So it's like, okay, well, you gave her the mission of killing Wednesday, but now that that's done, what is there left for Laura to do? So it'll be interesting to see her and Bill Quist working together and how that dynamic goes on, because Laura is a very abrasive person. She has a very strong personality. And she's dealt with like Salim, Liam, Matt Sweeney, and she's always kind of been very like upfront and gruff to them.
Right.
I don't know if she'll be to Bill Quist. It's like, how could you be that way to Bill Quist? So that'll be a very interesting dynamic there. But let's move on. I definitely want to talk about, probably to me, my favorite character this season, who has kind of been a favorite of mine the past 2 seasons as well, but that's Technical Boy. I love Technical Boy. I love Bruce Langley playing Technical Boy. And I thought that his arc was really interesting this season. Again, I am so sorry that I keep going, again, according to the book, but just to give you guys like a backstory, in the book, Technical Boy kills Bill Quist, and when Bill Quist is dead, her last like breath is essentially cursing Technical Boy, where it gives him an illness that makes him go crazy, until the point of death. So obviously we saw that the show was keeping little elements of that while not completely going that direction. So I love Bill Quist. Essentially what she did was like open up these emotions of Technical Boy where he didn't know what they were. And at first you think that they're just going to have him maybe descend into madness and that's it. But then exploring his past, exploring you know him accepting these emotions and actually having them, and is essentially becoming stronger because of it. And then that end reveal, I will keep my like mind blown for that kept under wraps for a second, because I want to go to you, Juwaan. What did you think of Technical Boy's journey this season? I know we talked briefly about his scene with Bill Quist, and then also, what did you think about the reveal in the end?
It kind of gave you a deeper look into why he is the way he is. Very much a tortured soul. Very much someone who trusted a lot of people in this heyday and was screwed over a lot. And I think he's a fantastic actor who brought a lot of depth to this character. As far as the reveal at the end, do you mean when he kept questioning to Mr. World, like, who is he? Because me and Joel actually have like a theory on that we definitely wanted to talk about on here.
Well, I know what the reveal is, but I won't say it unless you guys, obviously guess it correctly. But no, the reveal that is finding out that he's not technically the god of technology. He's human innovation, personified, and that in fact he's probably older than every single one of those gods. There can't be many gods that are older than him. To me, that was just like, because when they first introduced Artifact 1, I was like, what is that? Me and Michael from Thoroughly Modern Reviewer at first like guesstimated, like, oh, what if it's this like special thing where like maybe Mr. World used it and made like this human a god, because we see in the beginning of episode 5, like him with the automaton. It's like we had all these little like theories as to what Artifact 1 was, but then to find essentially that it's like a flint, to symbolize like the first like piece of technology, humans discovering fire, was just like, I never even saw that coming. To me, I was just
yeah, that was cool.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I said that was cool. I like that. That was one of my favorite scenes of the season.
Yeah, I very much would like the idea of a new faction of gods, where you have the old gods, the new gods, and then Shadow's gods. So you have Shadow, Technical Boy, maybe Bill Quist, and they form their own group, to where it's just like, maybe we eliminate all gods and we are the ones to rise to take over. And I would love that.
before I go back to you, John, I'm so sorry. I kind of like thought that that's what it was, like, because when Bilquis has her vision, right? She doesn't just see Shadow and Laura, she sees Technical Boy, and I'm like, can the four of them all team up and just like eliminate everyone?
Love it. I would really love it, but it all depends on us finding out, is Shadow coming out of that tree or is Mr. Wednesday coming out of that tree? So it's all about seeing what happens with that. But I very much believe that when Technical Boy gets freed, that he very much will go, I don't have a place with these new gods. I don't have a place with the old gods. And Shadow is gonna go, me neither. Would you like anytime I think of those two, I think of Step Brothers, like, did we just become best friends? And like they
their team up was amazing.
I loved it. Yeah.
Their team up was so amazing.
I loved it when did Shadow shoot Technical Boy and then like he started to like freak out and then the guard guy that they were interrogating was like,
no, he punched him.
Oh, he punched him. Okay. I love the scenes that they shared together. That was a lot of fun for sure.
That was great. First of all, I loved when Shadow kind of like hit Technical Boy into the bar and was like, that's for lynching me. You know, a callback to the first episode. And Technical Boy's like, I already said sorry. And he's like, yeah, not forgiven. Ever.
ever.
So I thought that was great. But yeah, whatchamacallit it, I just thought it was a really cool arc this season for Technical Boy. I loved finding that out, as Joelle said and you said, like, such a great scene, Technical Boy finding out who he really is. I just have a feeling that he's going to get free, and just like, I don't know, I hope he does something badass. Did you guys feel as if Technical Boy had very much a relationship with Mr. World as Shadow did with Mr. Wednesday?
Yes, and that's why I think, again, if Shadow comes from those trees, that is a team up that is just like a match made in heaven. They very much had two dads that were kind of just like, you're a means to an end. You're not really a son to me. And they feel the ultimate betrayal. And that usually whenever that happens to two bad guys, we know that those two bad guys are coming together. So, I mean, it kind of like the writing on the wall. It's like, this is the arc that will spark the team up of the two of them. And I tell you what, if Shadow has powers teaming up with Technical Boy, they will become unstoppable. They won't even need Bill Bliss. Like, those two alone can just go ahead and just murder everybody. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for the possibility of
that. You had said that you and Joelle kind of had theories as to, you know, when Technical Boy was asking Mr. World, like, who the fuck are you? Which I thought was just, first of all, cinematically shot very well, with Mr. World like whistling and kind of slowly walking away as he's like, who the fuck are you? So I'd love to get into that because I know the answer, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. So I don't know who wants to go first or anything, but you guys.
Want to go, Joelle?
You can go.
Well, at any point, Joelle, cut me off if I'm not exactly conveying what we said the other day. But me and Joelle, we did have the thought of, obviously Shadow is Odin's son, right? But Odin also, we saw Thor last season. We saw Thor last season. We know that Thor is no longer alive.
Right.
We never heard about Loki though. And
we did technically.
When?
So they never gave him a name, but if you read the book, you know who he is. In season 1, remember Shadow in prison with that white guy who tried to act like so like as if he was from the streets or something, where he was like telling him about like, don't mess with the bitches at the airport and everything like that. Yeah, that character's name in the book is Loki Ly Smith.
Wow.
Oh. So do we know if the show is if the show conveyed that that's who that was?
If I remember correctly, I don't remember if they ever said what his name actually was, or if you're just like, if you read the book, you're like, oh, that's that's who he is.
Do we ever see
What were
him
you
again?
saying, Joel?
Do we ever
No.
see him? That'd be a waste then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so then I take that then as we have not in the show seen Loki then. So to get to not delay this any longer, me and Joel fully believe that it's possible that Mr. World is indeed Loki.
It gave us the vibes.
It gave us the vibes that this might be that third long lost child of Mr. Wednesday, and that's what's driving this war, not the old gods versus new gods.
And if you guys remember, Tyr talked about the story of Loki. And if you guys remember, when he was telling Shadow about how he lost his hand, and he said that Loki, Father Farron or whatever, the dog and shit like that. Fenrir, yeah. And also the fact that Mr. World told Technical Boy that trickery is what he does best. I was like, ooh, you guys are laying it on right now so thick.
And I thought it was apropos because I'm like, wait a minute, Marvel's next show is Loki. Are they trying to squeeze this in? Like, no, we're doing Loki. We're doing Loki.
And it's played by like 3 different actors this season. So I'm like, it's like giving it away. No, it just seems so obvious.
I mean, his powers do showcase those of Loki. So it's not something that's far-fetched. It's not something that me and Joel were kind of just like, oh, it could only be. It just kind of was one of those things where it's like, I mean, what do they always say? If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So that's where we landed on, is that it's very possible. It even looks like a Loki. Like, he looks like that's who Kevin would have called if Tom Hiddleston couldn't do it for some reason. It's like, that's the guy you call to fill in for Loki.
Yeah. I mean, again, I know who it actually is.
So we don't want to know, but pretty much what you're saying is he is not Loki.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay, great. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. All right, Joel, look at us Sherlock Holmesing it out here.
Sorry, go ahead, Joel.
No, I was just saying, it just seemed obvious to me. I don't know.
Yeah. When we talked about it, we were kind of just like, yeah, no, that's what I thought too. Like, yeah.
She just said it. They were in and on thick. It
was one of those things where I didn't know if they were going to go in that direction in season 1, right? It's like, are they not going in this direction? And then I felt like maybe they weren't exactly going that direction season 2 either. But again, I have to give credit where credit is due. Michael from Thoroughly Modern Reviewer, when they were casting for this season, they were casting different variations of worlds. And I was like, oh, I wonder why they're doing that. And Michael's like, to make things easier for themselves. So I thought that was very cool. But if you're someone who doesn't know maybe, or you didn't read the book or anything, I think that scene is very good because it didn't tell you the reveal right away. Right. Obviously, we're guesstimating, but it didn't reveal it. I always felt like in season 1, the Odin reveal wasn't that great. Because I feel like he told Shadow like several times throughout the season 1 that who he was. And so when you get to like the season 1 finale and he's like, I am Odin. I was like, yeah, I mean,
it's pretty obvious.
people called you Grimner, Allfather, One Eye. I'm like, those are all like,
You guys are making me feel bad because Tia, you remember I told you I had no idea. Like, listening to like all that end part, I was just like, oh, okay, all right, I get it. And then I was like, I don't get it. Like, I had to rewatch season 1. I was completely lost. And I legit watched every episode. I didn't skip it. I didn't fall asleep. And I didn't see any of that shit coming. So, like, when he did that,
that's unfortunately the only thing I saw coming. That show.
Yeah, no, that
is just like, clearly we all saw what was coming. Like, we're not stupid. And then Juwaan walks in like, no, I'm stupid. I was
I'm sorry. And I'll tell you, like, when I watched the first season, I hadn't read the book yet, so I didn't know anything about this. Like, I read the book in between seasons 1 and 2, so it's like, but season 1, it's like, again, as Joel was agreeing with me, where it's like, everyone was calling him Grimner, the Allfather, One Eye. He's like talking about snow, and I was like, he's fucking Odin. What'd you say?
And the ravens and shit that follow him.
Yes, the raisins. I was like, he's Odin. So again, at the end of like season 1, where he was like, I am Odin, and I was like, yeah, like,
yeah,
duh. But
just
so
me.
that's what, well, Juwaan, that means that you would have been the Shadow or the Cordelia in this, because I feel like also like Odin never really like hides who he is. It's just the people he's around don't like have their like maybe eyes open to it, which is how Shadow was. And which is how Cordelia was for most of the season. So it's like, that'd be you.
Me and Cordelia would be sitting in the car like, oh shit,
What's this guy talking about?
I didn't see that coming. Like, you were a god? I didn't know. And it's just like, so you thought bodies dropping from the sky, all that was, didn't think any of that was weird. No, I didn't understand any of that. Like,
just normal.
I didn't get it. Yeah.
So normal. Yeah. So I liked with the whole Mr. World thing where they still haven't said it to it has enough of like you feel like Technical Boy, where he's like, who are you? Which again, like also leads me to believe like how did Mr. World, recruit say Technical Boy and stuff like that. It's very interesting to me. I keep saying sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think they kind of alluded to how easy it was for him to kind of go out and get someone like Technical Boy. He very much was kind of pushed away by society. Didn't really trust much, so they just took someone that showed that they cared about him. Because remember what he kept saying this season of like, do you not know who I am? Like, you think you can do this to me? But that's because Mr. World has built it to where he feels like the entitled child of like, this is my kingdom. You don't get to talk to the prince like that, So I think it very much was Mr. World kind of giving him not only a sense of purpose, but a sense of like caring. Like, I care for you. You're like a son to me. And that's why I think when he kind of figures out like he doesn't care, like it hurt a little bit. Like, God damn, why does no one love me? Like,
I know, I do feel bad. It's like, I know he's a little shit, but it's like at least Shadow has people in his life that care for him. Yeah. It's like Technical Boy has like no one at all. Like, he's just on his own, fighting his own battles, and everyone's like, "Hey, did anyone check up on Tech Boy lately?" And it's like, "Oh no, fuck that guy."
like, oh yeah, I forgot about him. It's like, oh man.
And the whole like idea of Technical Boy being like a child to World to me was especially displayed when we had Danny Trejo as Mr. World saying to him like, out of all my children, you are the most like vital and important. So I really like that dynamic. What did you guys think about the different variations of World with Danny Trejo and Dominique Jackson portraying this character? Joelle, I'll go first to you.
At first, I didn't understand it, but and I still don't truly understand it. But I did like the dynamic that they kept switching it up, and they kind of kept you on your toes. You're like, for them, like the whole time, we really had the one actor. What was his name?
Crispin Glover.
That's right, Crispin Glover. Fan casting on a lot of shit, so I like seeing him get work.
He would be a good Joker, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, he would. He really would. He definitely has a face, and also a good Loki. We just mentioned earlier. But I like the dynamic of having the three actors, and it kind of switch up, and we get a little Danny, a little bit of Dominique, and then of course even because I thought we were losing Crispin Glover at first because they were bringing in new people for World. It's like when they mentioned Trejo's going to take over, I'm like, oh, that's very odd choice, but I guess they're gods. They can look to whatever the fuck they want. So I didn't really question it. And then the Dominique Jackson casting, I'm like, all right, so he's just gonna keep switching it up. And I didn't understand. I didn't really question it very much either because they're just really all powerful weirdos. But obviously at the end, everything starts to make sense.
Yeah, I'm going to speak very hypothetically right now.
You got it.
So hypothetically, let's say Mr. World is someone else. Hypothetically, let's say Mr. World is someone that we've seen before. How do you put that reveal really when you haven't seen hypothetically the person since season 1? In the book, you don't really see Mr. World, so you never saw what he looks like.
Right.
So when the reveal happens, you're like, oh shit. But we've seen what Mr. World looks like, so it's like, so hypothetically, it's like, oh, well, let's explain that Mr. World just can change shapes.
Right.
A shapeshifter, hypothetically, very much like another Norse god that we've seen in things.
Right.
So
known for
I think that they
trickery.
were doing known for trickery and shapeshifting. Again, laying it on so thick. But Juwaan, what did you think of Danny Trejo and Dominic Jackson's portrayal of World this year?
I actually would have preferred if we only got Dominic Jackson.
She was fantastic.
Scene where she's taking the bat to the back of the
I love that.
Pawns, like, I love that, and I was just like, I wanted more from her. Like, make her a character on that show, like one of those strong goddesses that like doesn't take shit from nobody. Like, I want that. Like, she really, I've never seen her before, and when I say commanded the screen when he turns into her, and then she's kind of just sitting there and is just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are you guys doing? And then like the one person gets like really snippy and she takes the bat. I was just like, how can I buy more of this? Like, just this. So I really didn't pay much attention to Danny Trejo. Like, obviously I watched it, but it was just kind of like, it's Danny Trejo being Danny Trejo. He's freaking amazing. But she is who just jumped off my screen. And I was just like, I need more of that. I love that. So yeah, I loved her. If we can get more of this next season with maybe more people, especially maybe more people that aren't as known, I'd really love that, because they're finding some really good actors and actresses for sure.
The only thing I know about Dominique Jackson is that she is in that show Pose. And also there's a documentary on Hulu. I can't remember what it's called, but one episode is dedicated to her and her story, which is like super fascinating. And so I watched it. It's about a half hour long before the season premiere, just to kind of familiarize myself more with this actress. And she just, like, the stare that she had when she's like sitting there and telling Techno Boy to come in, and he's like, are we good? And she's like, well, let's assess. You fucked up your system upgrade, you did this. And I was like,
yeah,
I loved her. I'd be terrified if she was my boss and I had to go in with a meeting and it's like, time for your peer review. It's like, please don't give it to me.
I'll just quit, don't worry about it. I'll just quit.
But I loved it. I loved first of all, that one like person who, again, as you said, got like snippy with her. I was like, what are you thinking? What, you just called her irrational? What? Why?
That right to the skull. That was just I'll show you.
It's so great. To me, one of my favorite parts is so tiny, but it's when Miss World is wondering where the CEO of that tech company is. And they show that they have Bill Quist, and she's pretty much just like, this bitch, fucking crazy bitch or something she says. And I'm like, I would have loved to see the two of them together in a scene. It would have been so magnificent.
That is 100% for sure. That definitely would have stole the whole season for sure, seeing those two together.
Yeah, I love Dominique Jackson as Miss World. As you said, Danny Trejo was good because Danny Trejo is great in everything.
Yeah.
But Dominique Jackson was the standout. As much as I love Crispin Glover as Mr. World, and he certainly sells, his brand of World, like very eerie. Dominique Jackson was just great. She killed it, and I hope to see her in more. I believe I just heard that Pose is ending after its 3rd season, so I hope that she gets more work. She's phenomenal. So I would definitely love to see her in more. Whatchamacallit. So, I mean, listen, we're kind of like getting to the end of this. I only have a couple of more questions that we can kind of breeze through and everything. So, we got a lot of, and we talked about this briefly before, we got a lot of new characters, but we also lost a few. We lost Media, we lost the Jinn, we lost Matt Sweeney, and we lost Nancy. How apparent was it in this season that Nancy wasn't around? Because I feel as if, that was such a huge thing to lose him. And I will say again, before I hop over to you, Nancy does show up in the book after this. He's very pivotal. So I don't know what they're going to do if they can't mend relationships with Orlando Jones. So Juwaan, I'll go to you first. I mean, how apparent was it that Nancy wasn't in this season?
Very. I mean, we just spoke about Dominique, but to me, what makes American Gods so beautiful is its constant, strong Black presence. And
Right.
Bill Quist kind of going through what she was going through. Nancy would have been perfect to kind of balance the idea of that, or to help her know more about her history, because I'm sure he probably has an idea. It's a very large presence that you feel missing. I mean, I equate him being missing to the first time we sit down and watch whatever that new Avengers movie is, not having Cap, not having Iron Man. That's when we're going to feel it the most. We're not going to feel it now in these little shows and movies. When we sit down in an Avengers movie and there is no Cap, there is no Iron Man, you'll feel the levity of that. And that's what I compare it to where it's just like, dang, one of my heroes is not here, and you kind of really, really, really feel it. I mean, I kind of feel like Tia has now brainwashed me. I was even sitting here this whole season just like, damn, I miss Matt Sweeney. And it was just like, wait, am I saying that, or is Tia speaking through me? Like I couldn't differentiate, like, if I really I was like, is Tia forcing me to say this? But yeah, so yeah, I definitely felt his the lack of his presence for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was again something I was talking about with Michael. It's like, Nancy had such great speeches in the previous 2 seasons that we didn't get in season 3, and that certainly was felt. As you said, Juwaan, he would have been great for Bill Quist's journey. He would have been supportive. Like, yes, understand that you are more than what human beings and man has made you to be. I mean, that would have been just so wonderful to see. And I will say that it looked, again, I would love if they could just mend their relations for season 4. I don't know how possible that is, but it would be nice. It looked as if in the season finale that they were trying to fill the void of a Nancy with Ibis. Because I'll tell you again, in the book, that scene where Chernabog and Shadow and the tree and everything, that's a Nancy there, not Mr. Ibis. Ibis does not have that role in the book. So it's like, almost seems as if they're trying to replace, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. No shade to, Damar Barnes. He's freaking amazing as Ibis. But that should be realistically a Nancy. So, Joelle, how did you feel about missing a Nancy this season?
Very much. He was one of my favorite characters in the last 2 seasons. So you definitely missed him. Like, he always had a presence that you can't really replicate. And as much as I enjoy Mr. Ibis myself, he's no Mr. Nancy. A trickster god in his own right. But I think it's just, he was definitely missed, very missed. And he's always known for those crazy ass tirades and like speeches that definitely like amp you up. And like, there was none of that really in this season. So you missed that. There's something missing from the season. That was definitely it. He was definitely missed visually and just in word. And I love Orlando Jones, and he played that character so differently than I was expecting. So yeah, I missed all of it. So it sucks. But at the same time, like you said, I don't know if they'll ever be able to mend fences. I'd love to see that, but
I mean, I would too. There was a recent interview with Neil Gaiman where because Neil Gaiman doesn't have any decision making really when it comes to like the hiring and firing of people, even though he does help with, say, like guiding the story.
Right.
And they interviewed him, and he was saying, like, they said, like, oh, well, what do you want to see in a potential season 4? And he mentioned Orlando Jones. He was like, I would love for Orlando Jones to come back because Anansi is very prominent in what we need to tell. And it's like, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part sucks.
It also sucks because I'm sorry, John.
No, go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say Orlando Jones always like live tweeted with American Gods, and they were always like the best live tweets, so that was certainly missed as well as his character and his presence. But I'm sorry, Juwaan, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say it's something that I think can be fixed if your showrunner changes.
Yeah.
That obviously clearly was the biggest reason he was not part of this season was the showrunner. So I don't think he holds ill will to Starz or Neil. I think it's the showrunner. So if you find a way to figure out how to balance getting rid of the story that the showrunner has set up, just to bring back Orlando, then it could work. But go ahead, Joe.
Now, what was the reason he left again?
It was the showrunner just didn't. Ultimately, and Theo will explain this better, but to me, it just ultimately seemed like the showrunner didn't want him.
Yeah, so there's conflicting and when I say conflicting stories, it's just like people telling what their stories are. But for me, I interviewed Orlando Jones about like 2 years ago or something like that, and he explained that the showrunner got rid of him because and this was his words, not mine, that he was too angry, like too angry of like a Black character on the show, and that the new showrunner didn't want that. The new showrunner has not said anything. I don't know why he hasn't made a statement or anything. According to Starz, they're saying that his character just wasn't needed this season, but that didn't make sense because he saw that in like the final episode or two that his character was needed. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think it could be true what Orlando Jones said because Starz and American Gods is produced by Fremantle, which is the same production company that let go of Gabrielle Union, who has very similar complaints against Fremantle. So it could be very possible that that's the truth. And Orlando Jones has also said that if he wasn't needed this season, but he was going to be, say, brought back, I don't know exactly what it was called because it's been so long since we talked, but essentially with actors, it's like they're given like, say, a release form to say like, hey, we don't need you this season, so you can go on and like get other roles in the meantime and everything like that. You're not like obligated to be free during these times. And he wasn't given that. He was just like not given a contract at all. He explained. Sorry.
It's what what's his name did with that that show on Netflix, where they're investigating serial killers, Mindhunter. It's what that show.
Yeah.
It's what he told them, like, hey, we don't know when we're gonna do this again. Go find work, and then when we get information, we'll call you back. But like you saying, saying it was just like, hey, don't come to work tomorrow. It's just like, wait, what?
You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. Like, or according to Orlando Jones, he explained, say, we saw with Crispin Glover that he as his character wasn't in this as much, and according to Orlando, Crispin was actually sat down and like told that, like, hey, you're still going to be Mr. World, but not as much. We're getting these other actors to also play this character. But that conversation never happened with Orlando Jones. It was, as Juwaan said, like literally just don't show up. So the whole thing sounds so like weird and fishy, and I feel like if I were Neil Gaiman, I would tell this new showrunner, like, you cannot burn these bridges with Orlando Jones. Like, I need my Anansi. So that's very concerning. I don't know what's going to happen, honestly, because I know that Neil Gaiman doesn't want to change showrunners for the simple fact that if season 4 is their last season, he wants, someone who knew what they were doing. But I also just wish that Orlando Jones could come back. So yeah, that's that situation. And yeah, his monologues and his speeches and his presence were certainly missed. I know that when I was, looking on, say, social media for season 2, people were really happy with the very strong, presence of someone like Orlando Jones being, pretty much the voice box of what Black people are feeling in America. And so when you don't have that, it's like, what kind of message are you trying to, push there? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah. I just hope that everything works out. Maybe they can all sit down and have a little powwow, and we can just get him back for season 4. But guys, before we kind of wrap everything up today, we reviewed season 3. I want to know what you guys want to see in season 4. Juwaan, I'll go to you first.
I want to see the gods fight. I mean, at this point, I don't think that's too much to ask for. I want to see my gods fight. But no, seriously, I do want to see what happens with Shadow. I do want to see if me and Joel's theory is correct. And I do want to see that team form. Like I said before, Bill Quist, Shadow, Technical Boy, maybe Laura. But I'd rather what's the name of the driver? What's the driver's name again?
Salim?
No, Mr. Wednesday's driver for this season.
Oh, Cordelia.
Cordelia. Yeah. I'd rather Cordelia in that team than Laura, but it'll probably.
Juwaan, stop hating on Laura.
Hey, if it's how I get more Cordelia, I will hate as much as I possibly can. But yeah, so those are some of the biggest things that I hope I get. And Tia, fingers crossed, Nancy. Maybe that's what we'll get. Maybe that's the.
It'd be nice.
Right now, it would break the internet if they were able to keep it under wraps, and we get that trailer for season 4, and it looks like the trailer ends, but then it fades back in, and it's Nancy walking into the frame, and then it just fades to black, and we're like, yes, like what's that meme I always send you guys of that baby going, yeah. But yeah, so to me, that's the biggest things I'd look forward to seeing.
Not to compare it, but if you're a Law and Order SVU fan out there, you never thought that you were going to get Christopher Maloney to come back to play Elliot Stabler, right? You never thought that was going to happen. You thought that bridge was burned and all that, and now suddenly they're promoting April 1st crossover event, Stabler's coming home, and it's like, all right, miracles can happen, apparently. Let's get another one in here. But yeah, I'd love to see a team up of, listen, this is my ideal team up, right? I don't know what they could all do with each other because some of them are just basic humans, but you can have Shadow, Technical Boy, Bill Quist, Laura, Liam, Cordelia, and Celine. There you go. Our 6 rock stars there. Honestly, it's like, I know, Juwaan, you want to fight between the new gods and the old gods, but at this point, like, what new god is there? Like, it's just Mr. World.
You know what?
Who's possibly an old god?
Yeah, who's possible?
At this point, hell, I'll take a fight between hot dog vendors. I just need some kind of fighting. Like, I'm sick of story.
That's all this show is, though.
It is a story, though.
It's a story.
It's a story.
I thought it was building to the fight. Like, that's why I've been so patient. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't mind. And then it's just like, you're never getting a fight. It's like,
this is the age of manipulation.
Where's the age of killing? So I can check back in for that.
I mean, they've killed a few people in their time. I'm just saying, it's like, if you look at the new gods versus the old gods, it's like you have Mr. World. Technical Boy is so clearly not on his side anymore. Where's Media? We don't know. And then on the old guy side, so you have Odin, you have Chernobog. I don't know if you really have Ibis. I don't know if he's willing to fight. I don't know who else Odin has either. What'd you say, Joel?
I said Chernobog's definitely willing to fight.
Chernobog, I think, is feeling the same way I am. He's just like, when can we kill? And I'm like, Chernobog,
which is so fun. Which is so funny though, because like 2 seasons and most of the 3rd season, he's like, oh, what are you doing here, Votan? Get out of here. And now suddenly it's like, wait, there's no fight. I thought there would be a fight.
I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I'm with you, man. Like, me and him are both sitting here like, yo, when can I kill some people? Like, when y'all gonna let me just let loose? It's like
you almost saw it when he swung his hammer at Mr. World. I was like, Chernobog, don't do that.
It was like, don't you dare! You put that down.
You put that down. But Joelle, what are you hoping to see in a season 4?
I don't know. Like I just, I look forward to the show initially because I never read the book and I thought the book sounded interesting, so I was hoping the show was gonna be interesting. And I grew up on mythology, so I grew up a big fan of Greek mythology and Norse mythology. So like getting to see these characters they come to life more or less, I thought was cool. But they definitely did it in a very different way than I was expecting. So. Yeah. I've had to live with all right, well, this is what it looks like, or this is how it is. And I like that they use more different mythologies, not just the Greek and Norse ones. And I appreciate everything they've given us thus far. But I don't look, we got nothing from Thor. We got nothing from a lot of characters I was expecting from. So I'm not keeping my hope for anything. Fighting is very minimal on this show. So whatever new god I get to see, I'll be excited for just to see how they play it out. But I'm just keeping my mind open. I have no idea what I would want. I'd like to see what. There you go.
I was gonna say, the selfish part of me is like, I want to see Liam back again. Don't know what he would do. Right. He could go back to being a bartender at the Peacock, which is great.
Why not?
By the way, his I know this is so off topic, when he made his little cocktail and it was green and smoking, I was like, I kind of like that. I want that. I love that Laura Moon was like, what the fuck is this? You expect me to drink this? It's like, yes, it's St. Patrick's Day. Drink that shit. But what you calls it? I want to see Liam back. I do want to see the Jinn back. I don't know if I necessarily want Salim to get back with him. I want Salim to say to him, you left me high and dry. And that hurt a lot. And I realized how to stand on my own 2 feet without you. So you can go fuck off. And I lost your fucking sweater. So I'm, still my own person here, but you can go screw yourself. Because that was the thing really quick, Laura and Salim very much had this shared trauma of losing their loved ones, but Laura at least lost her loved one in a battle where he died. Mm-hmm. And we see that his love for her was valid, but with the Jinn, it's almost as if we saw that his love for Salim wasn't valid. So I'd very much love to see that sort of confrontation between the two of them. I want to see Techno Boy break out of his chains. I want him to be all powerful. I want to find more answers with Bill Quist's journey with Laura and Shadow. And yeah. And I hope that they do the reveal with Mr. World, as I know that they're going to do, because that would be great. But yeah, I think that is probably just about it for our review of American Gods Season 3. I really enjoyed this season. I know that, again, there were some, hiccups and maybe some things that didn't entirely make sense. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I love the lakeside thing. I love the Demeter with Tyr, which is, by the way, a story that is not in the book. So I very much enjoyed seeing that. I liked a lot of it. Of course, I missed a lot. I missed Anansi, I missed Matt Sweeney, but I really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you both for joining me for this review. I always enjoy doing these things with you. We have the MCR coming up this Saturday for the second episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, which is going to be amazing. And Juwaan will host because, thank God, I hate hosting. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Did you guys have a recent Figure It Out this week?
Figure It Out will actually be filming tomorrow. We'll be having.
What you doing?
We actually doing Transformers.
Okay.
So yeah. For us, we were gonna do Transformers Tuesday. It didn't work out, so we were gonna do it today, but I'm glad we're doing it Thursday, so we can at least still call it Transformers Thursday. Transformers Wednesday.
Yeah, that's true.
Sound is good. So we're able to do that, but we will have a special guest in Jay Sandlin. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Jay wanted desperately when he heard about the show to join. He wants to talk toys and he wants to talk some Transformers. So that's the best place to do it. So make sure you guys stay tuned for an all-new Figure It Out.
Yeah, please, absolutely make sure that you check that out. I will not be on that one because I am not really a Transformers person. So you guys have fun there. Juwaan, I love your background, by the way. Lovely GVN.
By the great
Want to show our merch store. Please make sure you check that out. We'll put the link down in the description. And yeah, again, thank you, Juwaan. Thank you, Joelle. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Peace.